Hello and welcome to this joint colloquium of Tokyo Institute of Technology and the University of California, Berkeley. I am Asa Ito, a professor of aesthetics in the Institute for Liberal Arts, or ILA, Tokyo Tech, and I'm the host of today's event. Today's colloquium is titled Piercing the Structure of Tradition, Flute Performance, Continuity and Freedom in the Music of Noh Drama. Our speaker today is Dr. Mariko Anno, Associate Professor in the Institute for Liberal Arts. And this is the second event jointly co-organized by the Center for Japanese Studies, or CJS, UC Berkeley, and Tokyo Tech ANNEX Berkeley, following the first colloquium held on September 7th, when the talk given by Professor Hugh DeFerranti was followed by an inspiring discussion. We will begin the colloquium with opening remarks by Professor Noriyuki Ueda, Dean of the Institute for Liberal Arts and Professor of Anthropology. So please welcome Professor Ueda.
Thank you, Asa. And good morning, and good afternoon, and good evening. I am Noriyuki Ueda, Dean, Institute for Liberal Arts and Tokyo Tech. And I'm speaking here, Okayama campus, Tokyo Tech. And you may feel absurd or strange, why Tokyo Tech and liberal arts. Yeah, but we are experiencing the liberal arts renaissance in Tokyo Tech Technology University. Our university was formerly famous for liberal arts education. So many professors, great professors, writers, novelists, and philosophers and psychologists. But those 20 years from 1990s, our universities make much on the specialized education. And then our liberal arts was somewhat forgotten. But in 2016, our Institute for Liberal Arts was established, and we are experiencing some renaissance. And I believe most of you haven't been to our campus. So just take a look at my campus first. And this is my room. And from the ceiling to the windows, and that red roof is our auditorium, and there's some lawns. Sorry, it's raining very hard and very dark today. And here you can see the clock tower, and that was main building, built in 1932. Yes, that is our building, and behind that main building there's many buildings and laboratories. And our Tokyo Tech was established in 1881, and not here in Okayama, but in Kuramae. Kuramae is a very southern part of our famous sightseeing spot, Asakusa Sensoji. But 1923, great Kanto earthquake, burnt down all the campus in Kuramae. And we shifted to this Okayama campus. But not so many people know that very close to the Kuramae campus, there was Noh Theater. Umewaka Theater, very famous Umewaka Theater was there, very close to Kuramae campus. And that also, that Noh Theater also burned down. And then now, Umewaka Noh Theater is at Nakano town. So today, Professor Anno's lecture will make some reunion of Tokyo Tech and Noh after 100 years. And let me explain some kind of memory of Berkeley. I have been to abroad for the first time when I was 13 years old. And my mother then was a translator of the TV drama, such as Beverly Hillbillies and Perry Mason. And my mother tried to brush up her English. And then she tried to leave me at my grandmother's house, yeah, the 13-year-old boy on the summer vacation. Yeah, but my grandma refused to take care of me. So my mother reluctantly take me to the Auckland Holy Names College, very close to Berkeley. And at one weekend, I visited Berkeley town and Berkeley University. And I was so surprised. Yeah, what a freedom it is. Yeah, what heaven it is. And yeah, town itself is very critical and political and full atmosphere of freedom. And I hadn't been to any universities so far, yeah, at the age of 13. So Berkeley is my first university, my first experience to be universities. So I'm looking forward to Professor Anno's lecture combining Tokyo Tech and Noh Theater after 100 years. And I'm looking forward to our fruitful collaboration between Berkeley and Tokyo Tech. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing our history and virtual campus tour of Okaima, Professor Ueda. So I'd like to proceed to the main program of today's session. Let me introduce our speaker today. Dr. Mariko Anno is a truly international scholar in the field of ethnomusicology and also a practitioner of the music she researches. Bilingual Japanese American from Chicago, she's an associate professor at Tokyo Institute of Technology, and in 2018 to 2019 was a Toyota visiting professor at the University of Michigan's Center for Japanese Studies. Dr. Anno holds a PhD in ethnomusicology from Tokyo University of Arts, or Tokyo Geijutsu Daigaku, and a doctorate of musical arts in flute performance and literature from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Her monograph, published by Cornell University Press in 2020, has the same title as today's event, Piercing the Structure of Tradition, Flute Performance, Continuity and Freedom in the Music of Noh Drama. This book presents groundbreaking research as it is the first English language monograph on the Noh-kan and addresses the role of flute performance in Noh as a space for exploring relationships between tradition and innovation. So first, Dr. Anno will give her talk for about 40 minutes. And after that, we will have Dr. Susan Matisoff, Professor Emerita of Japanese Literature in the Department of East Asian Languages and Cultures, UC Berkeley. And you can submit questions at any point during the talk using the chat function. And please do not use the Q&A function. So please welcome Dr. Mariko Anno.
Thank you, Dr. Ito, for that nice introduction. I appreciate it. And thank you, Dr. Ueda, for making the connection between Noh and Tokyo Tech, and also CJS at UC Berkeley. Thank you. Once again, my name is Mariko Anno, and thank you, everyone, for attending this Zoom webinar despite your busy schedules. I'm honored to see so many people around the world in attendance today. And also, I'd like to thank the Center for Japanese Studies at UC Berkeley and Tokyo Tech ANNEX Berkeley for making this event possible, and especially to Dr. Ito, Dr. Ueda, Mr. Ueda, and also Dr. Habu, Dr. Matisoff, and Ms. Hadler for making this possible too. Thank you so much. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay. So today I will give a 35-minute talk about my book, Piercing the Structure of Tradition, Flute Performance, Continuity, and Freedom in the Music of Noh Drama, which was published by Cornell University Press in 2020. Here we are. I would quickly like to acknowledge that there are many people who have helped me with my research, such as my university professors and mentors in the States and in Japan, my Noh teachers and colleagues and staff members at Tokyo Tech. I'm also grateful for the generous financial support received from Monbu Kagakusho, Rotary Yoneyama Memorial Foundation, Center for Japanese Studies at the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, and many other organizations. Without the support, my book would not have materialized. Finally, I would like to acknowledge the researchers whose work laid the foundation for mine, Morita Toki, Donald Berger, and Fujita Takanori. My book investigates flute performance as a space for exploring the relationship between tradition and innovation. I argue that traditions of musical style and usage remain vastly influential in shaping contemporary Noh composition and performance practice, as performers play fixed patterns that can be understood through a firm foundation in Noh tradition. However, within these fixed patterns, Noh performers find creative license and freedom of expression in multiple ways. This freedom becomes most audible in flute performance as opposed to the drumming and choral accompaniment that anchor Noh plays. In my book, I support this argument by examining the musical structure and Noh-kan melodic patterns of 5 traditional Noh plays and 3 contemporary Noh plays to assess the degree to which Iso school Noh-kan players maintain, to this day, the continuity of their musical traditions. But in my talk today, I'll be focused on 1 traditional Noh play and 1 contemporary Noh play. I will answer the following questions. 1, how is the Noh-kan unique compared to other flutes in the world? 2, what are the roles of the Noh-kan in Noh Drama? And 3, how are these roles realized in traditional and contemporary Noh plays? I will demonstrate the extent to which reliance on traditions enables innovative improvisational departures from Noh music's inherent rigidity. By relying on tradition, the performer has a foundation upon which to improvise while remaining within the confines of a Noh performance. Before I address those 3 questions, for those of you who are not familiar with Noh, I would like to give you a brief background. Noh, a traditional music theater of Japan, was created more than 650 years ago by Kanami and his son Zeami. To this day, Noh still reflects the personalities of individual performers throughout its long heritage. It is traditionally defined by 3 fundamental elements. Here we have your talent, ability, and skill, according to Omote 1978. The skill and specialty that one demonstrates can be applied to all of the varied aspects of Noh theater, its music, drama, and literature, and its use of costumes and masks. The subtly expressive wooden masks worn by Noh actors are prominent features of the art form and are compelling far beyond the boundaries of the Noh performance, with an especially strong attraction for people from outside Japan. Due in part to this attention, Noh is becoming an international art form with numerous performances abroad and an increasing number of foreigners studying its various aspects. Moreover, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, has designated Nohgaku, which includes both Noh and Kyogen, an intangible cultural heritage, as a masterpiece of oral and intangible heritage of humanity. I would like to answer the first question I posed. How is the Noh-kan unique compared to other flutes in the world? The Noh-kan, literally Noh pipe, also known as fue, is a transverse flute made from a type of bamboo known as Plioblastus simoni. Though traditionally played in the Noh theater, kabuki, and some shrine festivals, the Noh-kan can now be seen on concert stages as part of both traditional and non-traditional ensembles. A significant portion of my research consists of interviews with Noh-kan players and makers, and Noh composers and Noh researchers, in addition to consultation with Noh-kan literature and audiovisual and audio recordings of performances. Since the construction and acoustics of the Noh-kan have seldom been investigated, I interviewed Nanjo, whom we see here, a flute maker in Chiba Prefecture, Japan, and Hayashi Hoju, a Noh-kan maker from Ishikawa Prefecture, who had also been a fuekata, a Noh-kan player in Noh for the Morita school. The Noh-kan is a unique instrument in both construction and sound. The nodo, which you see here, is a throat. It's a thin bamboo placed between the mouth hole and the first finger hole. It disrupts the instrument's natural acoustics. This tube within the tube is inserted into the body of the instrument. Therefore, the Noh-kan is unable to play a diatonic scale as heard in Western music and cannot play an octave. So here we see this tube inserted within a tube, and here we see the flute, a model of the flute. For those of you who are not, so its performance techniques include shakuhachi-like white noise by blowing into the mouth hole with excessive and forceful air, using percussive breath marks to indicate the beats, and playing melodic lines to color the text of the chanters. For those of you who may not be familiar with the shakuhachi, it is an end-blown flute made of bamboo, similar to this. The nokan has a distinct shrill sound and can play scales that include microtones and quarter tones. In its outward appearance, the instrument has retained its original design, which I have here, a large mouth hole and 7 finger holes. The second question I posed earlier is, what are the roles of the nokan in Noh Drama? According to William P. Malm, the nokan serves 3 primary functions in traditional Noh plays. Here we have, number 1, the signaling and highlighting of structural moments, such as beginnings and endings. 2, adding a timbre that creates a special atmosphere in either instrumental music or lyrical passage in the vocal line. And 3, providing melody for Hayashi instrumentally accompanied entrances and dances. I will return to these 3 roles later in my talk as I analyze the Noh plays. The third question was, how are the nokan's roles realized in traditional and contemporary Noh plays? I will discuss traditional Noh first. Japanese researchers divide the Noh repertoire into 3 categories: Mugen Noh, dream world plays; Genzai Noh, real world plays; and 3, Ryogakari Noh, plays that fall between the 2 previous categories. Mugen Noh are plays in which the shite, the main role actor, is a being from another dimension of existence, either a god, demon, fairy, or plant spirit, or the ghost of a human being. And Genzai Noh are plays in which the shite portrays a living human being. Thus, the natural or supernatural origins of the main character are the determining factor in this traditional classification system. Most of the Noh plays fall into the first 2 categories, with the largest percentage in the Mugen Noh category. It is thought that the famous Mugen Noh, the dream world Noh structure, probably existed during Kanami and Zeami's time, but reached a point of completion as Zeami fashioned his Noh. So I say completion with quotes, sorry, as Zeami fashioned his Noh centered on song and dance into the structure. Most of the Mugen Noh follow a similar story. Please look at table 1 for typical Mugen Noh structure. In a Mugen Noh, the waki, as we see here in the first dan, who is the supporting role actor, first enters the stage, followed by the shite, the main role actor, who appears in a disguised form. So here we have the waki entering the first dan and the shite entering in the second dan. And this is the first act. And these are different scenes that we have here. And they exchange in dialogue. And here the shite does a little dance, and then the shite goes in for its nakairi. It exits. So usually the shite is usually is disguised as a local person in the first act and interacts with the waki, and then the shite disappears, the nakairi right over here, the costume change, usually exiting the stage or else remaining on stage within a contained area. During the shite's nakairi, the kyogen, the kyogen interlude actor, explains the play's background. After this narrative, the shite reappears in its true supernatural identity to exchange in a dialogue with the waki. And so we have here in the second dan, the nochiba, the second act, the waki waits for the shite to come back, and here the shite re-enters. And then later on, the shite does a little dance and exits. Entering the dream of the waki makes it possible to revisit historical events, battles, confessions of sins, forgiveness, revenge, enlightenment, and stories of unrequited love. Shodan are the backbones or building blocks of Noh plays, and Noh plays are made of different types of shodan. Please look at table 2. Shodan fall into several different categories based on a number of characteristics, and the nokan has different functions within these shodan. The great Noh scholar Yokomichi Mario and the Toyo Ongaku Gakkai, Society for Research in Asiatic Music, group shodan into 3 categories. And we have here the utai goto shodan, chant shodan, hayashi goto shodan, instrumental shodan, and shijima goto shodan, which are quiet shodan. Utai goto shodan are a type of shodan that feature the utai. These we have here on the right-hand side, and are sometimes accompanied by the instruments and movements of the actors. And hayashi goto shodan, which we have here, are purely instrumental music pieces, usually accompanying the entrances or exits of characters and dances. And lastly, we have shijima goto, quiet shodan, and they involve neither singing or instrumental music. And so we will not be discussing shijima goto in here. in this talk today. So moreover, as you can see in table 2, shodan labels are typically set off by specific styles of brackets. These are important because shodan within the same names exist in different categories, such as here we have the shidai of the utaigoto and the shidai of the hayashigoto. So if we look at the different brackets, we can see for utaigoto we have these brackets, and hayashigoto use these brackets, and these are used for shijimagoto. And we can see the same things here, these different brackets. The most important thing to appreciate here is that these shodan include set melodic patterns. The patterns repeat within an individual no play across different shodan, but they also repeat across different plays and even across different types of plays. No performers are working within these set patterns. However, that does not mean that there's no room for interpretation, individual expression, or creative freedom in the performance of these set patterns. In my research, I've discovered how no performers and specifically no-kan players find freedom within these set patterns, even in traditional no. Now that you understand the Mugen no structure and the shodan, we can analyze a no play Atsumori, which is a traditional Mugen no written by Zeami in the 14th or 15th century. As a warrior play, the second category of no plays, Atsumori is taken from chapters that deal with Atsumori's death from the 13th century Heike Monogatari, the tale of Heike, and the Genpei Suiseki, an account of the Genpei Wars from the 14th century. Both recount the story of the Battle of Ichinotani, which took place at Suma Beach in Setsu Province in 1184. My analysis of Atsumori is seen here in table 3. Today we're looking at Dan 1, scene 1, and scene 2. And we'll watch a video later on. So here is Dan 1, and here the waki enters. And Betty and Emmert summarize the scene. And I'll read this here. The presidential, formerly the Genji warrior Kumagai no Jiro Naozane from Musashi, is on his way from the capital, Kyoto, to Suma, the site of the Battle of Ichinotani, where he killed the youthful Atsumori. He intends to atone for his deed by praying for the repose of Atsumori's soul. At Suma, he hears the sound of a flute and decides to question some approaching reapers about it. End quote, 1995. The entrance of the waki is accompanied by the hayashi, the musical ensemble, in which the hayashi plays a shidai. Specifically, the hayashi plays a so shidai, priest shidai, because the densho is a priest, since the musical accompaniment changes according to the character of the waki, suggesting his social status and profession. The shidai is categorized as a hayashigoto ashiraibuki, instrumental shodan, unmatched playing melodic pattern, since it's instrumental, and the no-kan plays without adhering to the pattern of beats established by the drums. Many details of performance practice differ from performance to performance owing to several variables, including differences in performance styles for the waki actors, rank of the characters, differences in schools for the various drums, the size of the no stage, particularly regarding the length of the hashigakari, the bridgeway, and the time restriction for the no performance. In the performance of Atsumori under discussion here, the shidai begins with the no-kan's hishigi, a high-pitched sound with complex harmonic overtones produced by the no-kan, followed by the entrance of the drums. This fulfills the no-kan's first role, marking segments within a no by signaling the beginning of the play. It also fulfills the no-kan's third role, playing the melody for dance music and instrumental music by performing the melody for the entrance of the waki. A distinguishing feature of the shidai is its uneven pulse maintained by interplay between the kotsuzumi, the shoulder drum, and the otsuzumi, the hip drum, with their elongated drum calls and varying drum strokes. Again, let's look at table 3. The shidai, hayashigoto, is followed by the waki shodan. Here we have the shidai, nanori, and michiyuki, the opening song, name announcement, and travel song of the waki. The no-kan does not play during these two shodan of the shidai, the nanori, but in the michiyuki, it plays 3 melodic patterns. And we have here in red, takane, nakano takane, and kote. These melodic patterns are categorized as utaigoto ashiraibuki, chant shodan unmatched playing, played in the ashiraibuki style where the nokan is not constrained by strict beats of the drum patterns. As noted, a muchiyuki is a travel song. In this instance, the waki describes his trip from the capital Kyoto to Suma Beach in the melodic singing style, with the strict use of the 7+5 syllable meter, typical of much Japanese poetry. These three melodic patterns are performed by the nokan, and as you watch the michiyuki, listen to how the nokan fulfills its second role. It creates the onstage ambience by coloring the chant's musical line with its melody, and it adds tone color or percussive qualities to music played by the ensemble. So today we'll be looking at Atsumori, only the michiyuki because of time, so about 2 minutes we'll watch this together. And the nokan player is from the Morita school, not the Iso school because I couldn't find a video, but you can hear how it colors the melody of the michiyuki or the text of the michiyuki. Hold on. Now I would like to introduce you. Hope everything. Okay. I hope we're looking at the right screen. Sorry. Now I'd like to introduce you to my nokan teacher, Isso Yukihiro. From now on, I'll just call him Yukihiro. While conducting fieldwork for this book, I took private nokan lessons with Yukihiro. I'm sorry, can I just make sure that we're looking at the same screen? Yes. Just kind of got worried. Sorry about that. Thank you. Okay. Sorry, let me go back. So I took private nokan lessons with Yukihiro, a nokan master from the Isso school, both at Tokyo University of the Arts, where I was a student, and at his teaching studio. He is the eldest son of Isso Yukimasa and made his debut on the No stage when he was 9 years old. Yukihiro is a 15th generation Isso-ryu nokan player. This is a direct line of the 15 generations within one family, passing down the knowledge of this instrument. While firmly grounded in traditional Nyo music, Yukihiro also performs music of different genres and has formed his own diverse musical ensembles. In these ensembles, he plays all types of flutes, ranging from Japanese flutes like the ryuteki to shinobue. And also he plays dengakubue, an instrument that he created with danjo, which I'll talk about later, and nodonashi nokan without a throat, as well as gemshorn, Renaissance flute, and modern transverse flutes, and even recorders, with which he won the first place in the 1981 Asahi Shimbun Japan Recorder Contest. In 2006, he performed Bach's Orchestral Suite No. 2 in B minor on a Japanese transverse flute with the Tokyo Philharmonic Orchestra. You will see him perform in a contemporary note in our second video. Having a knowledge of traditional note structure and insight into the roles of the nokan's various melodic patterns in traditional no, we can now turn to newly composed modern no plays. Many shinsaku no, newly created no, have been written, particularly since the 1980s, but performance of newly created no plays are still so sporadic that it is uncertain whether any of them will remain in the repertoire. Nevertheless, a few shinsaku no have been successful and performed more frequently, such as the adaptations of At the Hawk's Well by the 20th century Irish poet William Butler Yeats. And Richard Emmert summarize the story as follows, which I'll read right now. The play is based on the Cuchulainn legend of Irish mythology. Cuchulainn, as a young man, is seeking a well whose waters confer immortality. An old man already has been at the well for 50 years, waiting for it to bubble up, and although it has several times, he has never been able to drink of its miraculous water. The well is guarded by a young woman who sits silently by the well and who, when the well is about to bubble up, becomes possessed by the spirit of a hawk. The play leads up to a woman's possessed hawk dance, which leads Cuchulainn away from the well and puts the old man to sleep just as it bubbles up. Neither is able to drink. In the end, Cuchulainn leaves to seek other conquests. The old man remains sadly behind, having spent his lifetime on this one fruitless endeavor. End quote. Yeats' At the Hawk's Well had a special resonance with the post-World War II no practitioners who adapted and performed it repeatedly. The Noh scholar Yokomichi Mario, whom I mentioned earlier, adapted Yeats' play in 3 different versions. So the first one we have is Takano Izumi at the Hawk's Well, which was first performed in 1949 in Japan. And the second one, Takahime, the Hawk Princess, first performed in 1967 and was recently performed actually last week, which I saw the performance, and so it's still ongoing. I think it just enjoyed its 39th performance. And number 3, Takano Izumi Shugakari at the Hawk's Well, the mantra, was first performed in Dublin, Ireland, and later in Japan in 2004. And I have a few photographs here, so we can take our images here. So Takano Izumi, this is one from 1949, excuse me, 1949. On this one, the 3rd version, Takano Izumi Shugakari at the Hawk's Well, the mantra. It uses the construction of his first version and incorporates the active portion of the hawk from his Yokomichi, his second version. Yukihiro performed this 3rd version on the Nokan in 2004 and discussed the performance with me in an interview. His performance demonstrates how the Nokan fulfills its 3rd role, playing the melody for dance music and instrumental music. During these various dan, or scenes, Yukihiro improvises and plays alternate melodies, kainofu, for Nokan melodic patterns in the dance, as well as in other places where he could. These alternate melodies were not stipulated by the play's creator Yokomichi, but chosen by the player Yukihiro. It is important to note that Yukihiro also played these melodies at the dress rehearsals, so Yokomichi could decide whether they were appropriate for the scenes. After this analysis, we will watch a video of his performance of the 7th dan, the 7th scene. So table 4 charts the melodic patterns and roles of the Nokan for the first, which I have here. We can see the dan, and also the 7th dan. I'm not including all of them because of time. And in this table, the Nokan's melodic patterns are placed within the appropriate dan. So we have the 7th scene, and here we have the Nokan melodic patterns without brackets or parentheses. And also I added red, so it'd be highlighted. And the shodan we can see here are used with proper brackets. Remember the utai goto shodan, and these are used for the hayashi goto shodan. So as in a typical Mugen no structure or typical no play, the waki enters in the 1st dan, followed by the shite in the 2nd dan. And in 3rd dan, there's a dialogue between the 2 characters. And I like to skip to 7th dan, where the Nokan fulfills its 3rd role. From the 7th dan forward, we can see that the utaibon, the chant book, includes musical materials from Takahime, the 2nd version, where the well starts to bubble, such as the chorus singing in canon and sections where the chorus sings with a low, quiet, jitori-like voice rather than with a full voice. As the story goes, the old and young men are waiting for the well to bubble up so they can drink this water of eternal life that is protected by the Hawk Princess. Right before the water begins to well up, Takahime, the Hawk Princess, is revealed from the tsukurimono, the prop on stage. So this is the scene, as you can see, Takahime being revealed from the tsukurimono, the prop. In the 7th dan, the hawk cries out for the first time, and we hear Atasara Samara Kikikiri Saya, sung by the hawk and the chorus, which is the mantra in the title of this play. The chorus narrates the hawk's movements and actions, such as her cry. When the chorus narrates the hawk's movements, Yukihiro notes it in his own handwriting as unison ashirai. Yokomichi did not give specific instructions to Yukihiro as to how to play the unison ashirai. Thus, Yukihiro played a different flute, the dengakubue, a new flute that Yukihiro and Nanjo created together with pitches similar to those of the chant as an ornamental enhancement. The chorus then sings in unison, its text depicting the action of the hawk as she slowly moves her body, spreads her wings, and later steps off the tatami mat to prepare for her flight on stage. When the chant and the nokan began together, the nokan and chant pitches were slightly off, which made it difficult to interpret what Yukihiro was attempting. By the second phrase, however, the nokan and the utai pitches were in unison, sounding the same pitches with similar pitch movements. Yukihiro explained that during the rehearsals, the chant pitches of the chorus matched perfectly with the high-pitched dengakubue. In the performance, however, the pitches of the chorus rose, making it difficult to adjust the notes until the second phrase. When the chorus sang about Takahime shaking her hips, Yukihiro depicted this action by shaking the notes using finger bravado or flattement. This is often heard in Baroque era music. The Harvard Dictionary of Music defines flattement in this way, and here I have on my slide. On Baroque woodwind instruments, a slow bravado made by waving the finger over a hole that the written note requires to be open, end quote, Randall 2003. Nancy Toff states that bravado is a type of ornament. Just as the Harvard Dictionary describes the technique, Yukihiro waved his fingers over the finger holes of the higher pitched dengakubue to accentuate the movement of the hawk through the end of the chorus utai. Let's go ahead and see a couple minutes of this part, the Dan 7. We're near the end. Okay. So as reflected in the performance by Isso Yukihiro, contemporary Noh plays navigate the tension between tradition and individual expression. Analyzing Yukihiro's performance in contemporary Noh, where he is given the freedom to experiment and improvise, and when he deems it appropriate, the melodies Yukihiro plays are completely improvisatory and are not particularly reflective of traditional Nokan melodic patterns. To conclude, Noh is a living art form that changes with the times, the energy of the audience in the hall, the performance techniques and abilities of the performers, the dedication of the performers to the art form, and many other factors. A capaciousness for artistic self-determination resides within the structure. Today, the analyses presented in my talk today demonstrate that the traditions of musical style and usage still reign over contemporary Noh composition and performance practice. Nokan music in contemporary Noh dramas does not deviate from traditional forms, content, and usage in any remarkable way. However, where variations do appear, they exhibit the performer's imagination and inspiration within the confines of prescribed patterns. This indicates that the Noh structure, steeped as it is in tradition, also affords a degree of artistic license and innovation. Thank you very much. And here are my references. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for inspiring presentation on traditional contemporary Noh with beautiful music and video, Dr. Anno. So now I'd like to invite Dr. Susan Matisov, Professor Emerita of Japanese Literature at UC Berkeley, to give some comments on the presentation.
Am I unmuted? I hope so. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm very happy to be here and very happy to meet virtually for the first time Dr. Mariko Anno. It's been a real pleasure for me to be able to read her book as well as hearing the talk today, which I think works as a kind of book launch for a book we should all know about. And I must say I was very taken with the title, Piercing the Structure of Tradition, because if there is one thing that the Nokan can do, it's pierce the consciousness of anybody who's listening to it. I take her motivation in creating this book. I take it that that motivation has come not only from her own deep study of the Nokan itself, that training, but also from her involvement in the very interesting developing world of serious hybrid and inventive Noh productions that have been coming out of a group of Japanese and international actors, performers, musicians, both amateur and professional, working together. And through working as part of that group of people, I have the sense that Mariko Sensei has developed a really strong multidisciplinary training, something which I envy greatly, and something which I think very important in understanding the coherence of the structure of Noh. If I may, I want to say just a little bit about my own experience. It's utterly non-musical. So in that sense, I'm an off the edge kind of discussant for this talk. I'm one of the most unmusical people you can imagine, although I am a very avid audience member for all kinds of music. For me, probably my greatest areas of understanding have to do with the textual and visual aspects of Noh performance. I first encountered Noh in a survey class on Chinese and Japanese literature, which touched very, very lightly on a number of different genres of traditional Chinese and Japanese music. And this is when I was an undergraduate. It's more than 60 years ago. But in an interesting coincidence, one of the first two Noh plays that I can't really say plays, but play texts that I encountered was Atsumori, in the translation by Arthur Whaley, which appeared in 1959 in Donald Keene's Anthology of Japanese Literature. Well, I read Atsumori and I read Sotoba Komachi in translation. And I understood that they were plays of some sort, and that they were maybe I understood that they were musical theater of some sort. There was a stage diagram, but basically it was just text. I zipped through a couple of plots, and they left me cold. So what was my problem? I think my problem was that I was focusing on what's the story. And that's not the most helpful focus for someone who is trying to begin to understand Noh. Later years, as this became an area that I really studied, I was impressed by two very pithy comments by Western scholars, one British, one French, encountering Noh. Many of us have heard them before, but I think they're worth mentioning in this context. One is George Bernard Shaw, who is famous for having said, although it's a very annoying thing that he said, "No drama is no drama." And then there's Paul Claudel, the French scholar who was pretty deeply immersed in Noh. And he had the interesting observation. He said, in drama, something happens. In the Noh, someone happens. Well, my sense of not having much of an appreciation for Noh and feeling that it might be the last thing I was ever going to get interested in changed when I started seeing performances. And as I reached the ability to be able to read these plays in Japanese, because for me, the depth of the beauty of the language is one of the things that absolutely carries me through in watching performances. I think I probably saw an educational video about Noh before I ever saw a live performance. I honestly can't remember, I wish I could, what the first Noh I saw was. But it was over the course of the years, I've probably seen, I don't know, somewhere between 50 and 100 performances here and there. Whenever I've been able to be in Japan, it's always the first thing I seek out. And I have developed a kind of three-part habit. If I have the opportunity to see the kind of program where more than one play is being performed on the day's program, or particularly when there are three, or in a very rare occurrence, more, I've taken to the practice of reading one of the plays in advance so that I feel that I really know the text. Following one of the plays by following the utaibon, the chant textbook, which is something that as most of you probably know, many members of the audience, not just foreigners, but many Japanese members of the audience are following the original text in the utaibon. And then if there's a third play that I get to watch, well, I watch it just watching, just focusing on what I hear, what I see, but not at all keeping my focus on the text. I think in terms of what we're talking about today, probably my most revealing experience was eventually having the opportunity to see the same play 3 times. Now, I realize that's not very many, but for me, that's the most I've seen any single play. The play, not coincidentally, the play was Semimaru, a play that I have done quite a bit of work on. And Semimaru has a set mask. The masks in the plays are very important for my appreciation of the performance. In Semimaru, there is a specific mask called Semimaru. So there was no difference from one performance to another in the mask, but there were costume differences. And that was one of the things that I found quite arresting. One of the two principal characters in Semimaru. Semimaru is a very unusual play because it has two shite, is one of the ways it can be interpreted. One of those characters is a mad princess who is a kind of shamanic figure in my analysis. And in one of the three instances when I saw the play, she was costumed in the white upper garment and red lower garment of a shrine miko. And that hit me. It hit me in a way that the beautiful costumes of the Sakagami, this character in this play, did not move me in the other two performances. Another difference was just the simple fact that when the principal character, Semimaru, comes on stage, and he's a young prince who's being sent into exile. It's a very sad moment. In terms of the stage performance, he walks on stage accompanied by two tsure, minor characters who are essentially just accompanying characters. And we understand that he's being taken into exile. And in one of the performances that I saw, the shite, who was performing the role of Semimaru, was relatively short. And the two actors who were accompanying him were quite a bit taller. And that simple fact had a bearing on giving me the feeling for how young this character was meant to be. A character whose face or whose mask looked exactly the same to me in all the different versions of the play. Now, no doubt in the performances that I was hearing, there were subtle no-con differences that I simply did not have the ear to catch consciously. But I think Mariko has given us a good sense of the many, many possible elements in the play that can be varied, whether it's comes from the different schools of drum performers or me going to the other extreme, the differences in costuming. There are all kinds of ways in which there can be slight differences. So I would say that the value, or a great value of Mariko's book, is that it details for anyone who is studying the no-con or performance in general, a great deal of very specific, fine-grained information about how the no-con fits with the other elements of a performance in the 8 plays that she analyzes, 5 of them traditional and 3 new plays. So the piercing quality of the no-con, I am so glad that Mariko-san has explained that the instrument can't play a diatonic scale because I have a painful memory of a day when I was teaching No to an undergraduate class, and I think the play was Matsukaze, and one of the students in the class asked me if I could hum or whistle some of the theme music from Matsukaze. And I had to explain that, well, first of all, no, I couldn't. And I didn't really think that anyone with only a Western ear for music would be able to sing the theme. And that anyway, there wasn't really a theme song from Matsukaze. So that's a kind of painful teaching experience that I recall. I want to turn now to innovation, the element of innovation. And I think it's absolutely perfect that Mariko-san's teacher is someone who is both deeply grounded in no-con performance and so very widely skilled and so willing to be so innovative. It was interesting to me the degree of freedom that he did have in the performance of Taka no Izumi Shugakari, where he substituted a dengaku type flute for the no-kan, and at one point, and in another point was using what Mariko calls finger vibrato. And so I see that. I don't think that those kinds of changes could happen in a traditional performance. I see that as a place where we find a new kind of freedom. Finally, I would like to make the point that the 3 Shinsaku no that are analyzed in this book are all by the great no scholar Yokomichi. And that I think in the broader world of other new plays, we see plays that deviate a lot further from the traditions of no, and yet if they're going to be seen as no plays of a type, they have to hang on to a certain amount of the traditional structure. That's the point exactly where Mariko is leading us. And so as I am concluding my comments, I'm eager to hear questions from the audience. I don't know how we're doing on time, but if there is enough time, I hope that we can get Mariko-san to say a bit more about her experience with working with these international mixed amateur and professional groups in performing plays with intriguing titles like Gettysburg, or the one that really intrigues me, and I think one can find a little bit of this on YouTube, Blue Moon over Memphis. Who knew that there could be an Elvis no play? We can't say that everything's possible in a Shinsaku no play, but it's extremely interesting to see how much is possible, and at the same time, how for a really fine play, I think that deep grounding is absolutely necessary. So thank you, Mariko. It's a very interesting talk.
Thank you so much, Dr. Matsuzawa. Those are wonderful comments. And I am aware of your book, your Semi-Maru book, and I agree like how the performers can bring it to life, bring the performance to life with the no mask and the costume and how it impacts us in different ways. And there's also freedom in choosing which mask, even though it's slightly different, or the costumes, the shozoku as well. So thank you so much. And yes, I just learned from you the 3-part habit that you have. I think I'm going to try that next time when I go to no performance, reading in advance, looking at the daibon, and just watching and enjoying it. Thank you. That's a great idea. Thank you so much for your wonderful comments about my book and also bringing everything together. I want to your question about theater Nogaku. I agree. It's been a wonderful experience for me. I've been involved with them for I don't know how long, but maybe over 10 years. I'm not really sure. But yes, for me to perform, for example, in Blue Moon over Memphis, I was able to bring together the no structure, understand the no structure, and see where the no-kan actually plays and what I'm actually doing by coloring the utai. For example, in the central narration portion, what is the playwright trying to accentuate and what is the no-kan doing at that point? For example, at a really high point of the utai, the playwright is trying to accentuate a certain part of certain words or maybe an idea. And the no-kan also is playing high notes in order to bring that to life. And for me, as you mentioned about mixed with amateurs and professionals, for me, it's been a great learning experience to see the professionals' dedication to the art form, how it's a living art form, they dedicate their life to it, and how they consistently try to improve their art form, which has been really interesting for me is that when I talk to the Nogakushi, the professional Nogaku performers, they talk about being involved in Shinsaku no and how it's a time for them to also break apart the structure of the no, because no structure is like a construction. So you have different shodan creating dan, and they're also analyzing different parts of it because many of them take it for granted, all these things they've been learning since age 3 or 4 or maybe 5. And so for me to see their dedication and also for me to learn from them has been a wonderful experience. But also, I know Theater Nogaku was created for people like us, amateurs or non-professionals who want to perform on stage and bring everything together, our knowledge together, bring everything together as in like, being a comprehensive art form. Like for me, I've been learning everything. So it's great to hear everything come together, the different drum patterns, and also my nokan playing, as well as the shite and the chorus singing together. So thank you so much for that wonderful question. I appreciate it. And also my next step is I'm working on a no play that hopefully Theater Nogaku can perform. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for inspiring the discussion. Actually, we are running out of time, but we have some questions from audience, and we don't have enough time to take all of them. But we'd like to take just one question. So yeah, Mariko-san, do you want to choose one question by yourself to answer?
I don't know.
You have 3 or 4.
Yeah. I don't know. This is. I don't know.
Okay, so how about the question from Dr. Paul Klinger? His question is, Noh is described as a very slow-paced form of theater. Years ago, noted musicologist William Malm proposed a theory that the slow pace and movements of Noh are purely Japanese. Chinese precursors or Noh were performed at a much faster pace. Has your research touched on this theory? If not, do you find that the pace and movements of traditional Japanese Noh have changed, slowed or sped up over the centuries? Do you have any?
I'm just not sure. I don't think I can answer that right now. I'm sorry. But I know there were Chinese precursors as a sangaku, that the acrobats that came from, the acrobatic movements that came from the Chinese folk entertainment as well. I'm sorry, everything seems like I only have a couple of minutes. I'm sorry, I don't think I can answer this right now at all together. But I do want to look at one, if you don't mind. It's from Ken Ueno, that nuclear melodies of the nokan are limited, seems clear, and that the deviations are limited in contemporary works too. But can you tell us how this is policed within Noh culture? It's not really policed, I guess. I mean, but those who, like, for example, I don't think the non-Noh, if people don't play the nokan, they wouldn't know it. But I know, for example, I don't know how much. I'm sorry, I don't know if I can say this in public, so I'm sorry. I don't. Maybe we can talk in private, because I don't want any problems. Sorry about that. Okay, so yeah, I'm sorry. Some of these, yeah. Okay, thank you.
So thank you very much, Mariko-san. So wonderful discussion. Yeah, it seems to me that our own encounters and wonderful research discussions with various Berkeley people are already bearing fruit in many ways. And I hope that this sort of interaction may lead toward an ongoing productive relationship in research activity. So thank you and take care. Goodbye.
And thank you so much, everyone, and thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.